morning. My name is Mike Hellman. I'm the Director of Origination and Risk Management with CoMark Equity Alliance, and I'm joined today by Trent, who's a originator, RMA Risk Management Advisor for North Central Oklahoma and kind of into South Central Kansas. And then the newest addition to our team, Kavan Killian, who has joined us. He'll be covering kind of the Oklahoma, Texas Panhandle. So welcome to the team, Kavan.
Happy to be here, and about 5 weeks in, I'm getting my feet wet, but it's been exciting and a welcome challenge.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about your background and your education growing up, and then kind of what you've been doing before you joined CEA.
Yeah, I was born and raised over by Stratford, Texas, where I graduated high school, and I attended Texas A&M. After that, I completed an ops internship, and then following graduation, I managed an elevator in Tulia for about 3 years. Then afterwards, managed an elevator in Lubbock, Texas for about another 4. I was in charge of operations, originations, and did some merchandising there as well. Wheat, corn, milo, and cottonseed.
That's awesome. And you've been with us about 5 weeks now.
Yeah.
What territory what were you actually covering out there? Which members?
So I'm working with Texoma wheat growers and Equity Exchange in Perryton. So really the Carrick to Derazette up to Liberal, Kansas triangle is where I'm working at.
So you kind of jumped in right in the middle of the beginning of fall harvest, I guess. I mean, not really the middle. You jumped in right at the very beginning of fall harvest out there. So give us a little bit of update on how fall harvest is progressing out there. I've made several trips out there this year throughout the summer, and they had a lot more moisture than they've had over the past several years. It was Kyle Dixon and I made a trip out there, and in Perryton, someone was mowing their yard back in July, and we kind of made a joke that you don't see that very often. But tell us a little bit about how fall harvest is progressing out there.
Yeah. So far, it's been really good. It started off earlier than anticipated in a lot of different elevators within our region. Corn yields have been quite a bit better than what's expected, led by those kind of timely heavy rains through that Texoma over following the state line area. There have been some areas that are a little bit drier and hotter than normal, which is getting pretty regular in that area, leading to pretty disappointing milo yields throughout that whole region. But as a whole, it seems like everybody's reasonably happy with their corn yields so far.
Well, good. Yeah, well, Trent, that's been a little bit of a different story for us here, and especially North Central Oklahoma. As you get up into South Central Kansas and then into Central Kansas, I know Matt Hartwell, our RMA up in that area, they've gotten a little bit more moisture up there, kind of in that North Wichita area. But for us, it's been drought. It seems like we're in a never-ending drought here. So why don't you talk a little bit about what we've seen from a fall harvest aspect as well?
Yeah, right in the central Oklahoma region and even in the eastern Oklahoma, corn yields were pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, considering probably not as good as last year, but it just seems like one of those deals where we're always getting rains early in the summer to get our hopes up, and then right whenever it's time to finish out that crop, those rains turn off and we have a lot of trouble. The bean crop, I mean, probably non-existent at this point. There's some that I've noticed that the leaves are actually turning yellow, which is a good sign, that plant's actually going through physiological maturity and it's going to go ahead and finish out. Some of those early beans just died, when you're combining beans with leaves on them, the things aren't going to be very good. The milo has been all over the board, anywhere from an average yield of what we would expect in this area to very bad, and done our best to kind of go out there and find those fields. It seems like milo acres were down quite a bit, and in my opinion, a lot of acres went to corn.
Agreed.
And that was probably better for those people.
Yeah.
But again, if you were in the wrong pockets, the corn yields were either zero or they were a lot better than expected, and it's kind of wild.
Yeah, after last year's corn harvest here in kind of north central Oklahoma, you're absolutely right. Those milo acres went to corn, and we kind of wondered how that would work out for producers. But the way the rain fell this year, I mean, it seems to have worked out well for them. So we've seen prices kind of bounce a little bit, especially in the corn market here, kind of following wheat into fall harvest. But guys that are still hesitant to sell because they're just bullish on the market and thinks things are going up. Are you guys having conversations with producers about what they should do? I mean, we've really pushed, I would say, over the last 6-8 months about don't just leave bushels in open store with interest rates where they're at and with storage fees where they're at. What kind of conversations are the two of you having with producers as we go into fall harvest here?
Yeah, I think a lot of guys within our area in Texas and Oklahoma Panhandle have been, a lot of them had really good sales on it early, which is great. Unfortunately, the market's kind of worked against people leading up into harvest. We have, like you said, a little bit of relief in the corn market where it's followed wheat a little bit. I hope that continues upwards, but the market can remain irrational longer than people can remain solvent. So it's always a good opportunity to look at some min-max contracts or floored options as well.
Yeah, for sure. Trent, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, it's been one of those deals over the last few years. I mean, ever since the Ukraine war, volatility in these markets has been incredibly high, and I think as producers, you have to be a little bit cautious in understanding what you expect a rally to actually be. And we had the wheat market kind of fall apart there after harvest, after that big run up where we saw funds liquidating their positions and we saw a pretty good run up in prices. Markets came back down, and now you got guys, if they've stored over this period of time, they're looking at what are my reasonable expectations. And if you look at corn or wheat and soybeans for that matter, you can make the argument that we're in an uptrend in all three of those commodities, but it's very slow and it's kind of a long grind. And as you said, you got to have a good idea of what your expectations are, because if you're paying storage and you're paying interest rates where they are right now, it costs a lot of money to store grain. And the guys that I've been working with, it's just we have those conversations about what our expectations are and what our storage timeline is. Sometimes just open store can be the right choice if you're looking at more of a short-term marketing horizon. But then if you're trying to really play that market and understand what your opportunities are, you can get a little more complicated, like what Kavan was talking about.
Yeah, for sure. We that kind of leads me right into the next topic of wheat planting. We've seen the drills really start rolling here over the last couple of weeks. Guys are dusting it in. We were fortunate to get a little bit of rain here 2-3 weeks ago. That some of that wheat's really starting to pop up, and giving us some hope there. We need to be praying for rain because it certainly needs some rain coming in on it. But that wheat price has rallied. We've seen some rallies in that. The crop insurance price was set at that 590 level, and right now you can get that July contract about 30-40 cents over that crop insurance guarantee. And so there's some opportunities there for producers to take advantage of that. They still seem to be a little bit hesitant just because obviously it's really dry and some of the crop failures we've had over the last couple of years, but then also the geopolitical world that we're living in right now, with an election year, all the conflict throughout the world, they're kind of hesitant that, if I lock in some wheat now, am I going to miss out on some black swan type events that may be coming down the pipeline. And we don't see those black swan events very often, but in the geopolitical world that we're in right now, it makes you think that there are some opportunities there. And so kind of what you guys talked about, those min-maxes or that minimum price contract actually allows them to be able to take advantage of what the market is giving them right now, and then also have some upside in case something happens in the market. And so certainly something to look at. Today, the wire this morning, we're taping this actually on a Thursday, and that wire this morning that came out that they bombed Russia bombed another grain vessel over there in Ukraine. And so that's 3 and 4 days.
Yeah.
And so, that the market has kind of became numb to those, but when you see them start picking up like this is something we haven't seen. So what are your guys' thoughts on wheat moving forward, and what should producers be looking for there as well?
I think that with those Russian vessels, especially as the market's not really taking an overt reaction to them as they happen, I think that effect will kind of accumulate, and then whenever the market decides that it's a problem, that you're going to have to be ready to react to it.
I think with most of these commodities, you really have to think about what the cumulative effects of different news items are going to be, and like I said, the market is numb to any one thing, but we have seen quite a few different individual fundamental reasons why the market would want to go up. So you got dryness in the southern U.S. for the hard wheat crop going in right now, and while we have had some stands come up, overall we are very dry. And then in Ukraine and Russia, we've got dry weather in those areas for sure. Russia has been the lowest FOB value in the world, so they've been selling most of the wheat, and most of the tenders get filled through Russian wheat. Well, they've exported so much wheat at this point, they're starting to have talks about putting export restrictions on. So all these things one after another. You've got pretty wet conditions in Europe and issues going on there. So you add one thing after another, and then you start to see that market creep up. And then think about the net short position that's been in commodities from managed money. And that you see that position really starting to unravel itself as we move forward here. And you can ask yourself what the reasons for that are, but I mean, changes in inflation expectations and things like that all play into those numbers gives contracts getting rolled back and possibly even going into a long position as those funds start to look at commodities as a hedge against inflation if they're worried about inflation coming back. And so you move all that forward, and I think there's opportunities out there. And like you said, black swan events don't happen very often. But if you are in a position to want to participate in that, you could make the argument that you would want to stay a little bit unhedged to participate in that. It all depends, in my opinion, starts with your budgeting for crops.
As always.
And if you're sitting here looking at a wheat price that you can't make money at, well, hedging at that value probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You might want to participate in opportunities for market to rally on you. But as Kavan said, you got to have some kind of plan in place to take advantage of those rallies and understand what number you're looking for. Yeah. So whenever you get there, you actually act on it.
Yeah, and that's where open orders come into play. We talk about that. We've talked about those on these videos before. Having open orders set in place. Setting some of those profit goals or those price points with us as we sit down and kind of go over your break evens and your profit goals and putting those in place so that when the market does hit it, it's not really a decision. It's already the decision's already been made, and so it takes a little bit of the emotion out of the decision. So, as you guys are out there talking to producers, what are your feelings on wheat acres in your area? Do you think they're going to be up, down, pretty even? What are your thoughts? No, it's a little bit of a struggle for you not being out there very long, but
I feel like it's probably about average.
Okay.
But having only been around for 5 weeks, kind of hard to get the best feel for it now. But planters are busy from Stratford over east and north. It's been a busy time.
Yeah.
And a lot of good emergence too.
Yeah.
Wheat looks good so far.
Good.
Yeah. When I try to make these guesses, I think about agronomically what makes the most sense for the area, and also looking at prices between intercommodity spreads and trying to determine which commodity might have an edge over another one. You can look at the soybean price and the corn price and the wheat price and compare those budgets, and I don't know that you're going to find one that's just an obvious winner. So at that point, we go back to what are our crop rotations typically going to be. And you can also look at if we had failed crop conditions, like a failed milo crop or failed corn or something like that. Typically, the longer ground stays fallow, the more producers tends to want to put it back to something. So wheat might gain some acres in that situation on failed ground, because if you weren't able to raise that good milo crop or something, you might just stick wheat in. But then it's dry. Yeah. So, it's so many things fighting against that. Luckily, wheat has such a long planting window, especially even from a crop insurance standpoint, depending on where you are in Oklahoma. I mean, you go either November 15th is your deadline or November 30th. So there's a lot of time here that if we catch a rain, I think you'd see a lot more wheat go into the ground. Yeah. And then canola, we could touch on that. There's not very many acres that are going to go into canola anyway, but as dry as it is, I would imagine that very few acres are going to actually make it into the ground in this area. And if they don't go to canola, the obvious thought is that they would go to wheat if they miss that canola window.
I would agree with that. As I've talked to producers through sales closing deadline on both canola and wheat, they just, without the moisture, they haven't planted them. I mean, I've had a lot of guys that typically put some canola in that didn't put any in, and if they did, they put in a very small amount compared to what they have in the past years. So, well, tomorrow's the WASD report that's coming out. It's kind of always hard to kind of second guess what the government's going to come out with on those numbers. But is there anything, we've been to some meetings here, some outlooks here lately, and just through some of the daily emails and things that we read. Is there anything you guys are seeing on that you're kind of looking for in that, or is it kind of just going to be a ho-hum one in your opinion?
I think we're going to have to pay attention to carryouts, but beyond that, I really don't see much else changing. Do you guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a lot to do with export expectations. I mean, a lot of our plays from the U.S. are going into Mexico right now, so you'd like to see export numbers into Mexico stay strong. And then we've had the various fundamental reasons why that hasn't occurred, whether it's rail problems or things like that. There was some talk about some plays where even some South American wheat could funnel up into the U.S. And it's all noise in my opinion. As Kavan said, I think the difference in USDA's expectations on carryouts in furthering on down that path, it all has to do with export and import expectations. USDA tends to lag behind, and really we're behind on wheat exports right now, and catching up with that is going to take some time. So that'll be a big concern, as we are typically the residual supplier in the world. It's however much we have on hand and however much we can flood the market with whenever that opportunity arises is going to definitely affect what world prices can do.
Yeah, and as we move forward into the fall, into the winter months here, we're here. We appreciate your business, your patronage with us. We're here to help you manage risk on your farms. We have budgets available on wheat and canola, and we will have them moving into the spring as well on corn, soybeans, and milo as well. But we're here to help you sit down and kind of go over and come up with a marketing plan. So, if you're from the Oklahoma, Texas Panhandle, reach out to Kavan out there. He's looking to get out. He's done a great job of getting out in front of producers and introducing himself, but he's looking to make some new acquaintances out there. And then, as always, myself and Trent and Matt Hartwell are here to help serve you as well. We want to partner with you and help you do anything you can to make your operations profitable. So have a great day, and reach out to us if you need anything. Thanks.